Another power talker is here, Professor Jim Clingman. You know him from his syndicated column, Blackonomics, which appears in many of our newspapers around the globe. Jim is going to tell us why we should adopt an economic spending plan and do it soon. Also coming up later in the next few days, you're going to hear from Dr. B. Also, blogger Brandon from the Huffington Post is going to join us. We're going to talk politics. And Mark from Anaheim is going to be here as well. And also Dr. Tate's going to stop by. So tell your friends they can listen to us all around the world. Just download the app. It's free at the App Store. It's WOL 1450. Or they can listen to us, WOL DC News, and check us out there. Also, WOL DC News, you can get a podcast copy if you missed the show or you got up late. You know, just go to WOL DC News. You get a podcast copy. Also, check out the WOL Facebook site as well. 800-450-7876. Again, that's the number you need to know. You need to keep that number on speed dial when we have these guests on, because we always let you get a chance to ask them questions. You know, we always have an open guest theory on this. We just like folks to ask questions. You got questions. I don't know all the questions. You know, it's a very participatory kind of a radio show that we do. But right now, let's say good morning to Jim Clingman. Jim, welcome back to WOL Radio.
Thanks a lot, Carl. Good morning to you and your listening audience. It's an opportunity once again to be with you.
Jim, we want to give you the opportunity, because you've been saying this for quite some time, that we need to adopt some sort of economic plan. You know, we talk about politics, we talk about social events, talk about sports, but the key is economics. We're missing the economic portion. Dr. Anderson mentions it quite a bit, and you've been saying this you've been beating this drum for quite a while now as well. And you're saying that do you believe that the time is running out for us to adopt this economic plan, like Dr. Anderson says?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Every day we don't do it is a day we lose. I can't say how much time we have to implement and to be successful, but I know we have today. All any of us has is today. So that's what I'm about. Let's just do what we know we're supposed to do to survive and thrive in this country economically, and things will be fine. They'll be far better for us than they are right now.
But how do we get our people excited about economics? Because it seems like that's the last thing our people want to talk about. Is how to sustain ourselves, by ourselves, for ourselves. You know, it seems like, because you've been out there, and we've had other people like yourself, like I mentioned, Dr. Anderson, he's got a plan, but our people are slow to adopt these plans. Why do you think, before we even get to the plan, why do you think that we're hesitant to embrace what you and Dr. Anderson have been saying?
Well, I think it's up to a person to motivate him or herself. I can't motivate anyone, but I can give information and knowledge to others that will help stimulate them to get more involved. They have this old saying, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, years ago, I added another step to that. I said, but you can make him thirsty. So it seems to me that we should be thirsty enough to drink the water that has been put forth by great people, Marcus Garvey, Booker T, W.E.B., Malcolm X, Claude, and others. Tony Brown, for years, promoted economic empowerment. So it's a matter of finding those folks, number one, connecting with them, and sharing the information, the importance of economic empowerment. And I believe that when most of our people hear it, they will respond in an appropriate manner. But I also understand that everybody's not going to respond positively. And, you can't wait for all black people to do anything, because that's not going to happen, except die. And, of course, pay taxes. And some of them are not going to do that, like the brother always calls from Atlanta. But I certainly have enough confidence in our people to know that once this information is laid out before them, the same way it was with me decades and decades ago, we will come to the logical conclusion of having to move forward in this country by using our dollars, which run the world, run this country, use our dollars in a more positive way. There are some, I call them knuckleheads, who are going to continue to go to the club and throw their money in the air and do whatever else they do with it, burn it up, whatever they do with it. But those are not the folks I'm talking about. I'm talking about just plain folks like I am and always have been all my life, who hear the message, respond to it, and do what needs to be done to help not only ourselves individually, but to help our people collectively.
What do you think it's going to take, though, to wake up some of our folks? You know, at the Power Talk conference, we talked quite a bit about this, and we talked with Tony Browder. Tony says, unfortunately, it might be something cataclysmic. Something huge has to happen for us to wake up, to understand how the game is being played.
Well, that could be true. I always ask the question, how hard do we have to be slapped? Maybe we've not been slapped hard enough, some of us. But as I said, I mean, I know people and work with people who have been conscious and who have been working toward collective economic empowerment for years. We have been slapped hard enough. We study, we share our information among ourselves, and you know, we respond. But Tony could be right. You know, George Fraser always says that it took us over 100 years to get into this situation, and he believes it'll take at least 100 to get out. I don't know the starting point of that 100 years, but I hope he's wrong as well. He could be right, but I hope he's not.
But you know what, Jim? It seems like our people are searching. They're hungry for something, but I don't know if they know exactly what they want. I think they're waiting for someone to say, here's the plan. And this is what you do. Here's steps 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's what you have to do to get out of this quagmire. Do you have any help for us?
Yeah, that's why it's so important for us to reach out to try to do everything we can to find those folks that we have discovered with the movement that I'm involved with, the 1 million conscious black voters and contributors. We found that when people hear this message, the vast majority of them respond positively to it.
All right, hold that thought right there. We have our first traffic and weather update for the morning, and then we'll come back. I'll let you tell us about that message, because apparently not everyone has heard that message. Folks, you too can join in this conversation with Professor Jim Clingman. Reach out to us. It's really easy. 800-450-7876. We'll take your phone calls after this traffic and weather update on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Good morning, D.C. This update brought to you by MedStar Prompt Care. Pretty good start to your commute so far this early morning. No issues around the Capitol Beltway. On the Baltimore-Washington Parkway southbound, delays begin from the Beltway as you head in toward Greenbelt near 410. Looks like we have a star car off to the shoulder. 301 southbound at Shortcut Road this morning. We have emergency road work. 2 left lanes are blocked. Your delays begin from Missouri Avenue. If you are sniffling, coughing, and feeling run down, you need MedStar Prompt Care. With 11 convenient locations, they can help you feel better faster. Visit medstarpromptcare.org/feel better now to find the location near you. This weather update brought to you by the American Association for Cancer Research. The American Association for Cancer Research, finding cures together. Please support cancer research by donating today at www.aacrfoundation.org. Variable cloudiness today with some sun, high in the mid-70s. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, lows in the mid-50s. Right now, mostly clear, 60 degrees. I'm Tony Thornton for News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
This is the sound of one person walking. This is another. Imagine the sound of more than 5 million footsteps, one for every American living with Alzheimer's disease. Now add in the millions more who feel its effects, and think about the impact we make when we all walk together to put an end to Alzheimer's for good. Join the Alzheimer's Association Walk to End Alzheimer's. Walk with us in D.C. on October 24th. Sign up today at alz.org/walk. That's alz.org/walk.
Those of us who were around in the 50s and 60s struggling, many of us have gotten tired, and we let the enemy have his way. Well, I did my best, they'll say, and you all take it now. I'm just going to sit down and relax or retire. I have never seen a lion retire from being a lion. I may not bite as hard as I used to, but I can still bite.
Don't miss the Farrakhan Speaks broadcast this and every Sunday at 8 a.m. until 9 a.m. right here on WOL 1450 a.m., where information is power. That's the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on the air this Sunday at 8 a.m. If you missed last Sunday's message, you have to hear him this Sunday. Don't miss it.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a pep talk that can motivate you.
Sometimes things don't always turn out the way you want them to.
You can improve your future. Now get your game face on and take the first step towards a better life. Hurry up. Don't make me repeat myself.
Whatever level of motivation you need, we've got a pep talk for you. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org for your pep talk and for free classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education. Brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Carl Nelson live and local from 6 to 10 a.m. on 1450 WOL.
I'd thank you for staying with us, folks. We're 12 minutes after the hour with Professor Jim Clingman. Before we left for the traffic update, Jim, you're about to tell us the particulars of the group that you're involved with Brother Amafika, and tell us why folks should get involved.
Yes, back to your point that how do we get the word out? Well, we're not... what can I say, TV personalities and famous people. I'm talking about Amafika and myself, but we do have access to social media, and we have been using that to, in fact, get the word out to whomever wants to see it. I think today we live in a no-excuse world when it comes to information. So it's a matter of accessing the information and moving forward with that information that we have among ourselves. So we have an internet campaign coupled with the word of mouth, because we all know other people. We can get on the phone and call them. We are on radio shows like yours. We have bought ads on radio shows like yours. And, just trying to get the word out about the 1 million conscious black voters and contributors. And it's a slow process, but it's a deliberate process in that we're not trying to force anybody to get involved with this. We're not telling people, drop what you're doing and do this. We're simply saying, look at this information, see if it makes sense to you. If it does, sign up. It's not an organization where you pay dues and all of that. It's an organization comprised of conscious black people who are committed to leveraging their vote and leveraging their dollars and pooling our talents together as volunteers right now to help our people. So the website is IamOneOfTheMillion.com. Listeners can go there and look for themselves and read and make up their own mind. We're only looking for 2% of black people in this country. And we did some analyses around that and came up with this 2% number. That's 2 out of every 100 black people. And if we cannot, well, I shouldn't say that. If we do not have 2 out of every black people in this country who are conscious or who are willing to raise that level of consciousness to the point of doing what we have set out as our mission, our objectives, then we're in deep trouble, Carl. And it's really analogous to what happened in Genesis, back in Genesis 18 with Abraham asking God, well, will you spare the righteous, or will you destroy the righteous with the wicked in Sodom and Gomorrah? And then he made a deal. He said, if I can find 50 righteous people in the city, will you spare the city? He couldn't find 50, so he started bargaining down 45 40, 30, got down to 10. But we all know what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. We're saying something similar, not as diabolic as that. But if we can't find 2% of black people who are willing to pool their resources and do what we need to do to advance ourselves in this country, then we are in deep trouble. Deep, deep trouble. Fire is not going to rain down on us, I don't believe. But we will have abdicated our responsibility to future generations.
Well, let me interrupt you and ask you this question, because you said conscientious voters. What if a brother or sister says, well, I'm not conscious, I'm not down with the black stuff, but I dig what you're doing and I want to get involved. Is he accepted?
Mm-hmm. Oh, of course. When I say conscious, people, first of all, need to judge that in themselves. But there is no reason a person cannot become conscious. There's no reason a person cannot, as I try to do every day, raise our level of consciousness. I don't think we ever reach a perfect state of consciousness. It's something we have to practice. It's a verb. We have to practice it every day. Think about what can we do? As I prayed this morning, I just asked God to help me to find something I can do to help someone else, to say something or to do something or to write something that'll help somebody else. And my concentration since 1969, when I went to the Black Library in Chicago, and my mind was open. Ever since then, I've, just made it a point to try to do things that are going to help our people on a collective level. Now, I'm not talking about constantly from 1969, but that's when my consciousness was raised. And it was information that the brothers and sisters imparted to me way back then in a place called the Topographical Library in Chicago, Illinois.
Wow. 800-450-7876. Hang on, Jim. We got some folks who want to speak with you already. 17 after the hour. Let's go to line one. Tyrone's calling us from D.C. Tyrone, you're on with Jim Clingman.
Good morning to both of you gentlemen.
Morning, Tyrone.
That's exactly what it is. We like to have a plan, something as plain as the nose on your face and ears on the side of your head. Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, Plan D. That's pretty much how we operate. It's pretty much how we think. It's pretty much how we've been used to doing things almost at the time since we've been here. So, anything other than that, we get very suspicious. We become doubtful and reluctant. Mm-hmm. So, when you're dealing with us, you have to basically lay it out as plain as 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 2 is 4, and that type of thing. And
hang on a sec, Tyrone, because you mentioned something very, very important here. You mentioned we're very suspicious. Jim, how do you overcome that suspicion?
Well, it's because of the way we've been programmed with the system of racism and white supremacy. We've been programmed not to trust each other, to hate each other, to hate ourselves. And that's not easily overcome. I mean, they did a professional job on the programming of black people. And we have to, it's going to take a long time for us to do an equal professional job of deprogramming ourselves. And we have to first deprogram ourselves individually before we can deprogram each other. And
Jim, you want to respond to that?
This is where the problem comes in. And otherwise, we could have been off the ground. But this is why this plane is stuck where it is. It's that lack of trust, and it grows out of that.
So fellas, let me ask you this. How do we overcome that? Because obviously we're at the starting point. We're still on the blocks. The gun hasn't been fired, and we're frozen. So how do we get over this paralysis?
We got to make up our minds, and it's got to come from the heart and mind. It's got to come from the individual. Then it's got to come from us collectively. We got to be able to force ourselves to put aside all of these differences that we have. And I think the best way to get this message out is through this whole plan, is through the black churches, through the bars, because you know that a lot of black people go to bars and they go to the black churches. We need to go.
Hang on a second, Tyrone. We got to step aside for a couple of announcements. And Jim, we want to get your response to what Tyrone said.
Hold on.
Yeah, hold on. 800-450-7870. You two can get in on this discussion. What do you think? You think Tyrone's on to something, folks? 20 after the hour. Your calls are next on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Hey, listen, next time you're hungry, stop by Tori's Restaurant. That's right, Northwest V Street and Georgia Avenue, right across the street from Howard University Hospital. Tori's Restaurant. Tori's Restaurant. Now, if you like good food, then this is where you need to be. Tori's Restaurant. They got breakfast all day, low country cuisine, also lump crab cakes, short ribs, and a whole lot more. And they got this daily special. Mondays, Ask the Chef Day. Wednesday, beef liver with onions and gravy. Thursday, meatloaf with gravy. Friday, fried whiting with hush puppies. 2 sides, bread, iced tea, lemonade, or mix. Ask about our catering service, too. Call ahead for carryout. 202-462-3700. Tori's Restaurant, 700 V Street at Georgia Avenue, Northwest D.C. Right in front of Howard University Hospital. That's Tori's Restaurant, 202-462-3700.
When the need arises for a funeral repast or a place to hold a memorial service for your loved one, call the New Horizon Hall of Elegance, located at 2209 Vernon Street, Mount Rainier, Maryland. They will take the time of need.
In 2007, 16-year-old Tyler Hill died while on a student trip to Japan. Hospital officials say his life could have been saved had he received immediate attention there, but it didn't happen. Let's make sure Tyler's story is not repeated. The cause is clear. Keep kids safe. Find out more at clearcausefoundation.org.
Children of America.
And now back to the Carl Nelson Show
On Washington, D.C.'s 1450.
1450 WOL Radio.
Thank you for joining us, folks. Our guest is Professor Jim Clingman, and it's on blackonomics, and we're talking about the paralysis, because Tyrone, our first caller from D.C., mentioned that, you know, they did such a great job for us, but unless we break out of this situation where it seems like we're frozen, we're not going to get anywhere. We can't even touch or even think about doing the things that Dr. Clingman is talking about. And Dr. Welsing is going to join us shortly. But Jim, you just respond to what Tyrone just said.
Yes. First of all, I don't believe that we are helpless. I don't believe that we can't do what we know needs to be done. I believe we're far too intelligent of people not to be able to lift ourselves to a point of self-reliance, self-determination. My answer to that question, Carl, is that, you know, when I wrote my first book, I said, we are psychologically enslaved. I understand that. I understand the programming, the conditioning, all of that. But should I respond by going off into a corner and saying, oh, there's no use in trying, I can't do anything to change this? Absolutely not. And to help other people see that, we should live our lives in such a way that people can look at us, work with us, know us, and say, wait a minute, first of all, how did that person get to where they are when it comes to consciousness? And let me look at this person's record. Let me see what they've done over the years to help black people. Are they just talking? Or are they just out here running their mouths? That's what I want people to do with myself, Amafika, as well as others in our group. Now, the other thing I want people to do, and I'm going to ask Tyrone a question since he didn't have one for me, but I'll say this before I ask the question. There are churches, as you said last week. Now, right there in D.C., and I say this almost every time I'm on your show, the Collective Banking Group, formerly known is called the Collective Empowerment Group now, operates right there in the Washington, Maryland area. The headquarters is in Upper Marlboro. And it's a cadre of 160 black churches that are working collectively toward economic empowerment through their 300,000 membership. They're not sitting around not doing anything. I agree. You go where people are, you find them where they are, and you let them see your works, and you share information with them. And my contention is that some will come and do what needs to be done. So my question for Tyrone, when it comes to hearing and doing, Tyrone, have you gone to IamOneOfTheMillion.com and read the information? If you have, I commend you for it. If you haven't, I just ask that you do that, because many of the thoughts that you just laid out are laid out in our plan. You said we need a plan. This plan has been in the works for over a year, and you can read about it, and you can choose to be a part of it as one person, or you can say, well, it's not for me, and that's okay too. But we have to have action in response to our words.
I certainly do agree with that, and I have had some friends of mine who have gone to it and actually told me about it. And I don't know if they downloaded it or not, but I want to know, is it downloadable? You know, can I, you know,
that's something that you download. It's just something you read, and there's a form on the site that you can just fill out. And all we're looking for is name, address, phone number, email, basically. That's all. And you are part of the group, and you'll start getting on the monthly conference calls. You'll start getting information. You'll start doing what Tyrone can do to contribute to the collective uplift of our people.
Well, one thing I'm certainly going to do is spread this news in my church that I belong to. But I would love to see. I'm 65 years old now, and I would love to see, before I depart this side of wonderful, us to stick together and get together and do this. And I don't believe we're paralyzed either to the point where we can't break it. But I will say this: it's going to be difficult, but anything that's worthwhile. I'll put it this way: a shorter way to take up. So I don't take up so much time. No pain, no gain. And we got to move in this direction. Now, thank you all for taking my call. Have a blessed and safe day.
Tyrone,
thanks, Tyrone.
Let me just mention to Tyrone that we do have a church component that's run by our sister Monica Williams. She has conference calls. She is reaching out to churches to get them involved. So I think there's something for everyone in the 1 million conscious black voters and contributors.
All right. 28 after the hour, 800-450-7876. Let's bring in Dr. Welsing now on line 2. Dr. Welsing, your thoughts so far on the conversation you've heard?
Yes, good morning. And I
good
know
morning,
the
Dr.
problem.
Wilson.
Good morning. The problem is gigantic, but we cannot despair. I mean, there's absolutely too much intelligence amongst us as a people for us to, in other words, it's huge, but not despair. And the way that I'm thinking about it at this point is, if we think about the system of racism, white supremacy, a system for white genetic survival, if we think about it as a structured edifice, like a building, and this building is being held up by 2 pillars. The first pillar is the intention on the part of the people who classify themselves as white on this planet as a minority that is white, genetic recessive, but it's their intention to dominate the planet. And when they had to think about how will we do it, one of the things that I envision is they think we have to destroy the self-respect of the non-white people. If we're able to destroy their self-respect, then we're able to control everything that they do. And so I say that pillar has been accomplished by the annihilation of the self-respect, let's say, of ourselves as black people, but also all the other non-white people on the planet who hate themselves. What's the proof that they hate themselves is that they're willing to fight and kill people who look like them. Okay, so if we understand the second pillar is made up of, let's just take ourselves as black people, the destruction of our self-respect as it is manifested in economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. So then the question arises, well, what can we do? Well, if one of the pillars, one of the two pillars that is holding up the structure is the annihilation of our self-respect, then if we decide what we can do as a collective but as individual people, if we decide to
Right, hold that thought right there, Dr. Welsing. We got a news report coming up we really want to hear, because you're coming with solutions, and that's what we want to hear. Folks, you too can get in on this conversation with Jim Clingman. Reach out to us, 800-450-7876. We'll take your phone calls at the news update on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Good morning. I'm Doug Parrish. Here's the latest from News1.com, brought to you in part by the Foundation for a Better Life. Commitment, pass it on from the Foundation for a Better Life at values.com. A pedestrian is hospitalized in serious condition after being struck by a D.C. police SUV. The accident happened yesterday as an elderly man tried to cross Connecticut Avenue Northwest near L Street. A police officer also sent to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Now, some witnesses say the SUV had its sirens on and the pedestrian was crossing against the light when the crash happened. Former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley is hoping for a strong showing tonight as he participates in the first Democratic presidential debate. Now, in most polls, Hillary Clinton has the lead as the Democratic contender, and there could be more surprises in the Democratic race for the White House. National correspondent Joe Gomez has more.
Tonight is the first Democratic national debate, and there's a lot of speculation that Vice President Joe Biden may jump into the race in time to take part in it. In fact, CNN has reserved a special podium for Biden. A new Reuters poll also shows that nearly half of all Democrats wish he was in the race for president. Meanwhile, confirmed candidates like Hillary Clinton, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, and former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley are gearing up.
Are the things we are doing working to achieve a better result or not?
That's O'Malley in New Hampshire. I'm Joe Gomez.
Well, the Washington Post says it will try to appeal a court ruling in Iran that found one of its reporters guilty of espionage. Reporter Jason Rezaian was arrested last year while working as a correspondent in Tehran. Meanwhile, the State Department is calling for Iran to drop all charges and release Rezaian. The news brought to you in part by UPSJobs.com, now seeking part-time package handlers in Chantilly. Apply now at UPSJobs.com/radio. I'm Doug Parrish. When you're looking for news for Black America, go to News1.com.
Good morning, D.C. This update brought to you by RCN Internet Redefined. D.C. 295 now heavy traffic building southbound from Eastern Avenue to Pennsylvania Avenue. Outer loop, you're jammed up now through College Park from 95 in towards Silver Spring past Georgia Avenue. 50 inbound, stop and go from 410 to Kenilworth Avenue, and starting to see some slow volume on Suitland Parkway heading inbound from First Sterling Avenue to South Capitol. Get RCN's amazing award-winning internet voted #1 by PC Mag. It's awesome-amazing. RCN Internet Redefined. 1-800-RING-RCN or RCN.com. Today's weather forecast is brought to you by Compassion International. Every child deserves enough. That's what you can give to a child in poverty when you sponsor through Compassion International. Find out how at compassion.com/radio. Variable cloudiness today with some sun, highs in the mid-70s. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, lows in the mid-50s. Right now, mostly clear. 61 degrees. I'm Tony Thornton for News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Real Talk Radio in the AM.
The #1 morning show. #1 on everybody list.
Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
Thank you for rolling with us this morning at 25 away from the top of the hour with Jim Clingman, one of our power talkers, and joined by another one of our power talkers, Dr. Francis Gress Welsing. And Tyrone started it off and says that, you know, some of our people, we need marching orders. We need, you do 1, 2, 3, really break it down in steps. And he said part of the problem is that we're sort of paralyzed, frozen. I think those were my words. But we need to get off the stump, folks, to get busy. And Dr. Wilson was telling us why and how. Dr. Wilson, your solution.
So, in other words, we've got this edifice system. I mean, in other words, we're calling the system of racism white supremacy. We're using the analogy of thinking of an edifice and a structure. And the structure is being held up by 2 pillars. The first pillar is the white intention to build and establish and maintain a system of racism and white supremacy. And then as we analyze the system, we see that one of the most critical block in the system is the destruction of black self-image and black self-respect. And so, indeed, if this is the second pillar that is holding up the structure or the temple of white supremacy, then we have control over, to the extent that we can envision it and understand it, then we take control of the second pillar and decide we're going to bring that pillar down. In other words, we are going to destroy the pillar of black self-hatred, black lack of self-respect, and the destruction of the black image. I mean, in other words, we allow that the system of racism and white supremacy has effectively accomplished that. Proof, the system is standing. But we can change this second pillar, sort of like Samson in the temple and knocked the pillars down and the temple came down. If we transform the black self-hatred and the destruction of the black image and turn it into black self-respect, and each individual black person has control, I say the resources that we need is the energy that every individual person has to work on themselves. It's like looking in the mirror, I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to transform myself from a person who didn't, first of all, understand the system of racism and white supremacy, and I'm going to work on my respect for myself and the destroyed image of black. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to work on the lack of, in other words, if I don't respect myself, I can't respect anybody that looks like me. And so the distrust that we always think about that flows amongst us instead of having trust. But if each individual person is in charge of the resource of their energy and just begin with the simple things that Neely Fuller laid out. Stop name-calling one another. Stop gossiping about one another. Stop cursing one another. Stop squabbling with one another. Stop snitching on one another for reasons of personal gain. Stop being discourteous to one another. Stop being disrespectful to one another. Stop stealing from one another. Stop robbing one another. Stop fighting one another. And stop killing one another. And if we do those things, I theorize that with the understanding of racism and white supremacy and practicing black self-respect in economics, black self-respect in education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, this edifice of white supremacy is going to come down.
You know, let me ask you a question, Dr. Welsing, because somebody, the last time you were on and you said that, and they asked the question, but it got late and we couldn't get to the person. But anyway, the question was, so what do we do with the sellouts, the people who are there, who are upholding white supremacy and are selling us out? Do we ignore them or do we take them
all of us
out?
are holding it up. All of us are in charge of the second pillar. All of us are holding it up to the extent that we don't understand exactly what we're dealing with, but we can transform that. We can begin to understand exactly what the system of racism, white supremacy is. And we can understand how we are holding it up. We didn't know that we were holding it up, but when we analyze, we see, some of our behavior is helping to hold up this edifice, is essential. See, we're 9/10 of the people on the planet. The people who are white are fewer than 1/10. But they had an idea to structure the system, to structure the temple of racism, white supremacy for their genetic survival. And they understood that it will take the destruction of black self-image, so that if you just look at the march, Minister Farrakhan's march, where they started out talking about he's a bad person and it's going to be chaos and it's going to be this and it's going to be negative that. And for the second time, he pulled black people together and had a demonstration of black self-respect. The people came. The media wouldn't even recover it. It's like, let's keep dragging out Bill Cosby's name and demeaning him. Let's drag out O.J. Simpson's name. Let's just keep dragging out negative images of black people. Let's help them put on Empire. Let's help them put on Scandal. Let's support all kind of negative language in the music that they listen to. Destruction of image. And so I say, that's my thought. Because each individual can be in charge. I'm transforming my brick in the pillar, so to speak. I'm working on me. Everybody works on their me. And we end up with, we then end up having something.
Jim?
Well, there are many things that Dr. Welsing said that I could comment on, and certainly I believe that we must transform ourselves individually and then connect with others of like mind to do the things collectively that we must do to advance ourselves in this society and in the world. It speaks to me from, I'm sorry, there go the drums. So
the drums. Hold on a second. I'll let you finish your response. Dr. Welsing, you can stay with us if you want. Folks, you two can get in on this discussion with Jim Clingman. 800-450-7876. Calls next, 16 before the top of the hour on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
The IRS has the right to freeze your assets, garnish your wages. Good news is they can also give you a way out called the Fresh Start Initiative, a tax debt compromise program designed to save you serious money. Optima is the nation's leading tax resolution firm. Over 300 professionals to help ensure you pay the minimum, not a penny more. Thousands call every month. You can call right now. Optima. That's Latin for cut me some slack.
Call 800-960-1575. 800-960-1575.
Optima Tax Relief.
Harbor Point Wealth Management assists retirees and pre-retirees in the creation of retirement strategies utilizing insurance products that provide guarantees backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. We are not affiliated with the U.S. government or any governmental agency.
Are you confident that you won't outlive your savings during retirement? Studies have shown that outliving their money in retirement is the #1 concern of most retirees. Karen Scott Men's ESQ of Harbor Point Wealth Management can help. She can offer a retirement income analysis that will answer your questions about retirement, including will Will I have enough money to last? Will my spouse have enough money if I pass away? What rate of return will I need to average to avoid running low on money? And what impact would another downturn have on my retirement income? To get your income analysis, call Karen today, 866-621-6660, to receive your complimentary retirement income analysis. Call today, 866-621-6660.
Hi, this is Karen Scott Mims. If you're interested in tax-efficient retirement planning, give us a call at 866-621-6660.
Today in school, I learned a lot. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me. In English, I learned that I'm disgusting. And in physics, I learned that I'm a loser.
Today in school, I learned that I'm ugly and useless. And in gym, I learned that I'm pathetic and a joke. In history, I learned that I'm trash.
Today in school, I learned that I have no friends. In English, I learned that I make people sick. And at lunch, I learned that I sit on my own because I smell. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me.
In biology, I learned that I'm fat and stupid. And in math, I learned that I'm trash.
The only thing I didn't learn in school today?
The only thing I didn't learn today.
The only thing I didn't learn
is why no one ever helps.
Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. Teach them how to stop bullying and be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
I'm Karen, and two very important people in my life, my husband and my father, have been diagnosed with atrial fibrillation. Atrial fibrillation, or AFib, is a type of irregular heartbeat. People with AFib are 5 times more likely to have a stroke than people without AFib. Talk with a healthcare professional today about your risk and learn how to manage AFib to prevent a stroke. Visit stroke.org/AFib to learn more.
Your voice can now be heard.
Y'all ready?
Yeah. With Carl Nelson weekdays from 6 to 10 a.m. on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us at 13 away from the top of the hour. Our guest is Professor Jim Clingman from Blackonomics, and also Dr. Welsing has joined us as well. Jim, you want to finish responding to what Dr. Welsing said?
Yes, I was pleased to hear Dr. Welsing say what she said relative to what I said earlier, that there are things that we can do, that we should not go off in the corner and throw up our hands and say it's all, there's nothing that we can do. And that's where I'm concentrating, on what we can do. And the area that I have chosen to work in is economic empowerment, and now with the movement, political empowerment, which over the years I've been reluctant to get involved with because I really didn't have any respect for the system or many of the people in it. But what can we do? Amos Wilson taught us that if our behavior changes, then our relationship with those who oppress us will certainly change. If you read Frederick Douglass's biography, the part that he wrote about Mr. Covey, I used to beat him all the time. And one day he said, I jumped on Mr. Covey when he beat me, and I choked him to the ground. And I told him, if you ever even think about wanting to beat me again, you better be prepared to kill me or to die yourself. He said at that moment I was free. So his behavior took him to a different place. And who knows if Frederick would have ended up where he ended up had he not changed his behavior. So each of us can change our behavior when it comes to things that we know exist in this country, rather than sit around and wring our hands about what we haven't done and we've lost and, we can't do anything and all that. I think that's just a prescription for continued failure. So, Amos Wilson suggests that power has to do with a relationship between people. And he says that the white man's so-called power is to a large degree based on the nature of the relationship he has with the black man. And Amos goes on to say that we empower white folks by the nature of our own behavior and our attitudes as a people, which Dr. Wilson just alluded to, our attitudes, and Tyrone alluded to. And the white man cannot be what he is unless we are what we are. I believe that, and Malcolm talked about it as well. So I think it's a matter of bringing this kind of information to bear among ourselves, first as individuals, and then collectively, and doing some of the things that Dr. Welsing just said. We're not out here trashing anybody. We're not out here trying to demean anyone for what they've done, what they haven't done. We're about action now, today, because that's all we have. So we're about positive and practical action in terms of public policy, being able to affect that in a way that benefits black people, and collective economic empowerment. Those are two simple but very practical and necessary things that black people must do and can do in this country to help our people be uplifted. And that's what we're about.
Right. But you know what, Dr. Clingman and Dr. Welsing, Tyrone started, he said that we've been programmed. We collectively, as a group, we've been obviously there's some of us who've fallen through the cracks of who are awake, who are socially aware of what's going on. But what do we do for the rest of the stragglers who are not as aware as the rest, are still in mental slavery? How do we free them?
See, I would say, in other words, you don't worry about that. You don't cast those individuals who don't yet see aside. But it's like the church says, whosoever will, let them come.
Yeah, that's right.
So you don't worry about who won't come. Maybe if one person, that's like, a car falls on a child and everybody's standing around looking, and the mother comes forward and says, I'm going to save my child, and they lift the car. One person lifting the car. And so it's not worrying about those who don't want to help. It's those who see, this colossus of racism, white supremacy is on us and it's destroying us. And I like the analogy Professor Clingman just gave about, I don't know the Bible that well, but in terms of, God saying, if I can find whatever number of righteous people, I will come to your aid. And so,
and let me ask you, Doctor. So we should approach the folks that were selling us out in the same venue. Should do the same thing with them. Just ignore them.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. Say that again.
The people who are selling us out, the Uncle Toms.
Don't worry about them, Carl.
Don't worry about them.
Don't think about what you are doing. You are doing a colossal thing as one person. You have pulled all kinds of people, all kinds of minds with all different kinds of ideas and suggestions together. You, one person, Kathy Hughes Station. So I would say, don't have a negative opinion towards people who may not see. Those who don't see today will see next week. And maybe some will be blind forever. That's not important. What's important is those who come. And I think at a spiritual level, see, I say that if, the whole thing about connecting with the force that created the universe, if we get on the right wavelength, and I say the wavelength of self-respect, meaning we respect what the creative force made us. I say it's like respecting being black as opposed to I don't want to be black, I want to be white. If I respect being black, then I'm tuning in to the force that created me. And then that force will either I will be able to, my antenna is connected to that force and will give me the power that I need if I'm into the right wavelength. And the right wavelength is justice. So we're going to replace this unjust edifice of racism, white supremacy that brought us enslavement, that brought us all the murder and killing that is going on the planet right now.
Jim?
So that's my thought.
Okay.
Yes, I am very pleased to hear Dr. Welsing use a characterization that we have adopted with the 1 million, and that is, whosoever will, let them come. We are not, you can't stand around. If Harriet Tubman had done that, she would not have freed the slaves that she freed. So we're not expecting everyone to go, Carl. We're not even looking for everyone to go. We know that's not going to happen. So if you go into a movement such as ours, understanding that, we won't be disappointed when everybody doesn't come.
All right.
They'll just get on a later train.
They'll make the late train. Thank you, Dr. Welsing. Thank you for joining us.
Okay. Bye.
We're going to keep moving, folks. 4 away from the top of the hour. We have a traffic and weather update for our listeners in the DMV area. And we'll come back. We'll take more of your phone calls for Jim Clingman next on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Good morning, D.C. This update brought to you by Food Line. We'll start on 50 inbound, right at the Beltway prior to the ramps. You'll see the crash activity. Now moved off to the right shoulder. It's good news, but the bad news that you're still seeing your delays beginning from just before 7:04. No issues around the Capitol Beltway through Prince George's County, Suitland Parkway, Branch Avenue, and Pennsylvania Avenue, running well as you head inbound this morning. Shop your local Food Line, where you'll find prices ripe for the picking with this week's MVP hot sales. Get a 1-pound bag of Food Line baby carrots for just 99 cents. Slice better with the Lion. Food Lion. This weather update brought to you by Cambria Hotels and Suites. Book your next hotel stay at Cambria Hotels and Suites. Their modern, stylish rooms make you feel like you've been upgraded. Now open in downtown D.C. and Rockville. Visit RadioCambria.com for special rates today. Fog this morning turns to sunshine today. Highs in the mid-70s. Tonight, mild with increasing clouds. Low near 60. Right now, 52. I'm Tony Thornton for News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Listen Wednesday, October 14th from 10:30 to 11 a.m. on WOL News Talk 1450, Montgomery Mosaic, a show focused on your community in Montgomery County. Join host Deborah Milo as she welcomes Evan Glass, Executive Director of the Gandhi Brigade, who will talk about their youth-produced documentary, Juvenile Justice, The Road to Reform. Tune in to hear more about this event and how you can join in both the free screening of the video and the follow-up discussion afterwards. Montgomery Mosaic, Wednesday, October 14th from 10:30 to 11 a.m. on WOL News Talk 1450 a.m.
Before girls' night out, my eczema flared up. Ugh, I felt like canceling. But then I tried Cortisone 10 Eczema Relief. It's specially formulated for eczema and has 1% hydrocortisone, the strongest non-prescription itch medicine for fast, lasting itch relief. It quickly stopped the itch and soothed my red, dry, flaky skin. With Cortisone 10 Eczema Relief, I was ready for girls' night out, and it was the best one ever.
Cortisone 10 Eczema Relief. Feel the heal. Use as directed. Let's go inside the mind of a 10-year-old.
I should have worn those earrings today. I like those earrings. Gabby has those awesome earrings. I need to ask her where she got those, but that's just what she would want me to do. I'll have Michaela ask her for me.
Buckle up, Sarah.
Yeah, but then Michaela will be like, why don't you just ask her yourself? That's just like Michaela.
Sarah, buckle up.
Michaela's such a great name. I wish I was called Michaela. There's like a dozen Sarahs in my class.
Hey, we're not hitting the road until you buckle up, honey.
Oh yeah, seatbelt. I forget sometimes because my brain is like busy, you know? I wonder if there's pizza at school today.
Sometimes it can be tough to get through to your kids, but it's not impossible. Always make sure they're wearing their seatbelts, even on short drives. Remember, you have the keys, you have the power. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. Visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup for more information.
Every day I wake up at 5 to give Dad his medicine. Every day I wake up at 5 to give Dad his medicine. At 6 I make his breakfast. Every day I wake up at 5 to give Dad his medicine. At 6 I make his breakfast. At 7 I shower. Every day I wake up
For those caring for a loved one, we hear you. That's why AARP created a community to help us better care for ourselves and the ones we love. Visit aarp.org/caregiving.
Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
WOL Washington, WPRS HD2 Waldorf, WKYS HD2 Washington, WMMJ HD2 Bethesda, celebrating 35 years of service to the community, where information is power.
The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.
Welcome to the Carl Nelson Show
on Washington, D.C.'s 1450 WOL Radio and live around the world on WOLDCnews.com.
Thank you for staying with us. And our guest, Professor Jim Clingman, one of our power talkers, and you just heard for another one, Dr. Francis Grace Welsing. Another one's going to join us later in the essence of Dr. Renoka Rashidi. But, Jim, you know, one of the things that Dr. Francis Grace Welsing mentioned, I'm sure you've been getting it since the march on Saturday. People calling about what the minister didn't say and who should have spoke and all this kind of nonsense. And that's why I was pushing that line, because hopefully you'll put it to rest now. So, folks, we just got to move on. I just want to get your thoughts. I'm sure people have been calling you and telling you about, you know, what they thought about the march.
Right. I see it as yet another jumping off point to do the things we need to do. I think that if we look closely at that as well as other things that are taking place, this primary, for instance, black folks have absolutely no skin in this game right now. If you think about it and ask yourself, why would two of the smallest states in this country be so important in determining who's going to be the nominee? Iowa and New Hampshire. Iowa's 91% white. New Hampshire's 93% white. Together, they only have 10 electoral votes. And this is all we hear about. Nothing mentioned in these debates about black folks. And we think we plan in politics. It's ridiculous. And the way I see it, that as well as the event on Saturday and other things that we see are points from which we can do, some of us start to do, but many of us continue to do, the things that need to be done collectively for black people in this country. So I'm not going to get into a lot of discussions about what happened, what didn't happen, you know, positive, negative, all of that. I'm saying, okay, it's Tuesday morning, and what are we going to do today? What am I going to do today? And I think if more of us look at our world that way and just determine what we as individuals can contribute to the uplift of our people, if it is getting involved with the 1 million conscious black voters and contributors, fine, do that. But do something that's going to help yourself and help our people. That's where I try to look at life every day, Carl. And, you know, the event was the event. It did what it did. They said what they said. But do we just stop there? Do we just stay there in that place? I say we do what most of us know needs to be done, and that's change public policy toward the benefit of black people, when right now we have absolutely no political power, and change our collective economic status in this country. Because as I heard Dr. Claude say the other day about our relative position, now in 2015, we've been surpassed by Hispanics in terms of aggregate income. We brag about having $1.2 trillion. Well, they have $1.5 trillion, and twice as many businesses and revenues than blacks do in this country. So we better wake up. We better get with people of like mind who are conscious or who are trying to be more conscious and do the things that we know need to be done in order to move ourselves forward.
All right. Let's take some calls for you, Jim. 800-450-7876. 4 after the hour. Let's go to line 3. Chris is calling us from New York. Chris?
Hey, how you doing? Good topic as always.
And what I'm going to say, it doesn't take away from anything because I agree with everything that was said. It's just adding on to the table. It's not against anything. And I like to address what they said with the image in terms of, and also just as a note, I'm going to join his group, look into the website and stuff like that. And also, I applaud, I thank our leader, Farrakhan, and also every other black, and the reason why I'm saying this, and every other black person who contributed to the 60s, the 70s, 80s, black radio, Al Sharpton, whether people agree with him or not, and Gary Bird, the whole nine. The reason why I'm saying this is, and this guy who's talking right now, yourself, and a lady who just called him. The reason why I'm saying this is what I'm saying. Image is important, right? The black community, we've been bombarded on TV, everything negative, negative, negative. I listened to black radio since I was a teenager. It's always a negative, let's find a solution, negative. I grew up with the drug community, whatever you want to call it, but there was always a positive there. There was always, and I'm not talking about the superstar who becomes, who succeeds and does all this kind of stuff like that. I'm talking about the average person, the grandmother, the mother working, the father who's working every day, the truck drivers calling up. These positive images are not put out there. So in a way, what you're talking about doing, I believe, this is my thing, it's not a negative what we're talking about, saying that we got to overcome this. It's that we're believing the hype, just like they did with the past election with Bloomberg, where they put out in the media that Bloomberg was going to win, the other person was going to lose. It got in their psyche, the African American, that they stood home, not realizing if they went, they would have won. So this image that they got, even with the president, is a prime example. We celebrated when he won the voting, but since that time up until now, they've taken that image away where we can't even celebrate it. We've been here with ancestors since the time that we got here, and we can't celebrate a real celebration to stand up. I don't even feel like, within us, with that black community, there's that pride saying we have an African-American president, even though he's boxed in. And what I mean by that, image is important. So at the same time we're coming up with solutions, we have to do it like it's just an idea to put out there. We have to come out with, even on black radio, of kind of positive examples of black people doing something. So it's like if you're driving. If you look towards the wall, you're going to totally drift that way. If you look towards that, you might drift that way. If you look up towards God, you might drift that way. So by you putting that out there, you can actually turn that negative that you're talking about with the images and whosoever will, and people going there. And that's why.
All right. I tell you what, let's give Jim a chance to respond to what you said, Chris. I thank you for your call. Jim, do you understand where Chris was trying to go?
Well, the point I took from it is one I made earlier in the show call, and that is it's how we live our lives and the images, the character that we're portraying to others. We know that people, we look at one another all the time. So what he is suggesting, and I agree with, that it's about the images that we portray. And those images have to be genuine. They can't be fake. They can't be opportunistic. They must be genuine. And I believe that if we live like that, people can look at us and say, hey, I like what I see, and I checked this person out, and he did this or she did that in the past, then fine. You decide if this is the kind of person that you want to roll with. If not, find someone else. But this whole notion of image and everything, it reminds me of a quote from our dear brother Ken Bridges, who was killed on October the 11th, 2002. He told me once, and he wrote it to me, he said, as of today, the concept of white supremacy has been eliminated from my focus, other than to point out that it exists in the minds of most people of African descent.
Finish that on the other side. And we got a bunch of folks who want to speak to you. 800-450-7876. You too can speak to Professor Jim Clingman. We take your phone calls 10 minutes after the hour. Next on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Good morning. This traffic and weather update brought to you by the American Association for Cancer Research. We'll start with delays on the Beltway. On the inner loop from Oxon Hill as you head from 210 Indian Head Highway, expect some slow volume as you cross the Wilson Bridge into Alexandria. Outer loop also heavy through College Park now from 95 all the way to Georgia Avenue. Baltimore Washington Parkway southbound from South Laurel from right around the Prince George's County line. You'll see those brake lights, and it's going to be heavy all the way in toward 410 through Greenbelt. 95 southbound jammed up from 212 Beltsville to the Beltway. DC 295 also slow southbound from Eastern Avenue to Pennsylvania Avenue. The congestion now continues on 50 heading inbound now from New Carrollton, starting from just before 410 as you make your approach to Kenilworth Avenue and stop and go on Suitland Parkway westbound between Branch Avenue and South Capitol. Cloudiness today with some sun, highs in the mid-70s. Tonight partly cloudy skies, lows in the mid-50s. Right now it's 61 degrees. I'm Tony Thornton for News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Moving today or tomorrow and not sure who to call? Well, your worries are over. Ted's Moving and Hauling at 301-254-8221 is your one-stop place to call when you need to move from your apartment, home, or office. Ted's Moving and Hauling is one of the best, with experience and professional movers to handle all your needs with no job too large or too small. Ted's can do it all. Call now to find out more. 301-254-8221. That's 301-254-8221. Need something hauled away? Ted can do that too. Ted's Moving and Hauling is one of the best, and with some of the best prices in town. So, if you need to move uptown, downtown, or out of town, call Ted's Moving and Hauling today at 301-254-8221. That's 301-254-8221. That's Ted's Moving and Hauling, moving you from your home, office, or church. Call Ted's today at 301-254-8221.
Those of us who were around in the 50s and 60s struggling, many of us have gotten tired, and we let the enemy have his way. Well, I did my best, they'll say, and you all take it now. I'm just going to sit down and relax or retire. I have never seen a lion retire from being a lion.
$1450 AM, where information is power. That's the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on the air this Sunday at 8 a.m. If you missed last Sunday's message, you have to hear him this Sunday. Don't miss it.
Real Talk Radio in the AM. Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us at 12 after the hour. Our guest is Professor Jim Clingman. 800-450-7876, the number to call to speak to Jim. Jim, are you finished? Do you want to take another call?
Emphasize this quote from our brother Ken Bridges, whom you knew. He said, as of today, the concept of white supremacy has been eliminated from my focus other than to point out that it exists in the minds of most people of African descent, and raising our consciousness is the only way to eliminate it. Now, this gets back to what Dr. Welsing said. She said things that we are involved with right now in terms of action, practical action, to eliminate this whole notion of white supremacy. And that's what the 1 million conscious black voters and contributors have laid out in writing in our planning, as Tyrone suggested, on our website, IamOneOfTheMillion.com. And it speaks to what I said about Amos Wilson's writing. We can change this relationship. And when we do, the behavior of those who seek to oppress us will also change.
All right, 800-450-7876, 14 after the hour. Let's go to line 4. Sylvia's calling us from California. Sylvia, you're on with Professor Jim Clingman.
Good morning, Carl and Dr. Clingman and the rest of the listeners.
Good morning.
I have a problem that I'd like for you to solve for me, please. I relate supremacy with being godly. To me, when I say supremacy, it's God. And to me, if we call this system, and God has a system too, and if we constantly call this white racist system supremacy. What do we call God's system? Is it chopped liver? Because God's system is the supreme, and I do believe with all my heart, all my body, all my soul, all my essence, if we stop calling the system a white supremacy system and call it a white racist system, which is what it is, if we leave off that supremacy because that belongs to God, and if we keep giving them that power like that, if we stop that, I believe with all my body and soul, God will bless us overnight, because we keep giving those people his power. And if you can relate that back to me, I would appreciate it. You all have a nice day. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sylvia.
Thanks, Sylvia. I agree with her, and it's just it's what I just read from Ken Bridges. He said the concept of white supremacy has been eliminated from my focus. Now, I understand the semantics involved here with supreme, and I, like Sylvia, believe that God is supreme. There's no man who's supreme over me, no man living who is supreme, period. When you compare it to what supremacy means when it comes to God, I believe what she just said. I have to keep going back to Brother Amos Wilson. He's written tons on this. He said that we are really responsible for the creation and the maintenance of those who oppress us because of how we behave toward them and what we think. And if we think that they are supreme over us, then in fact they are. But we must, as Ken Bridges said, eliminate that from our focus and not see them as supreme. Now, people will play with that word supremacy and supreme and get into what it means in that particular context. But we're talking about a construct. We're talking about a concept. And if we succumb to it, then in fact we are doing what the term implies. We are subordinating ourselves to someone whom we feel is supreme over us. And that's not the case.
All right. 800-450-7876. This is the number to call. Speak to Jim. Let's keep rolling. Let's go to line one. Tabakuti's calling us from the ATL. Brother Tabakuti, you're on with Jim Clingman.
Well, good morning, Carl, and good morning, Dr. Clingman. Carl,
good morning, brother. And I've been trying to reach you, so I want to get your number. You leave it with Kevin. I've been trying to get in touch with you.
Okay. What I want to say is that when people say that we have been programmed, Carl, I know some people say I'm arrogant, but Carl, I'm not buying that. My mother, Carl, who does not have a high school diploma, when our father was killed, my mother took the money that she got from when my father was killed, and she built a house. Now, Carl, when the house was built, the white developer who built the house made a comment to my mother that about her not being able to pay for the house. And my mother responded to him by saying, well, this is your house, and it sits on my land. And if I get into a position where I can't pay for your house, you can come and get your house off of my land. And she said that white boy turned 8 shades of red. And now, Carl, as she was paying for the house, the bank sold the note on the house, Carl. And what happened was, and it happened to several people in our community. And one of our neighbors, and I love her so dearly, she's no longer with us, but my mother was talking to her, and my mother hired an attorney, and she tracked them down, and my mother kept all of her receipts from what she paid for the house every time she make a payment, and she sued them. And she said, I have not authorized you to change anything regarding my financial arrangements. And she finally tracked them down in Florida, and that's where it stayed until she paid the house off. And so, and our neighbor, she told my mother, she said, you mean you call them white folks to talk to them about something like that? My mother said, look, this has to do with me and my children, and there is no way some white person going to take what I have away from me. And I think what happens, Carl, is that people have bought into that Willie-Lick syndrome and all that other crap, and they actually believe this stuff is real. But it's when you put practical application to test, that Willie Lynch fails every time. So I think people need to understand that and just know that if you do nothing, you will get nothing. See, my mother did something. And let me say this. My mother, she's a Christian. She's nowhere near being what you would call conscious. She goes to her church meetings and stuff like that. She still does. But what I'm saying is that it's what you allow people to do to you. And when you don't, and when you stand up, only thing that's going to happen to them, they will buckle. Because, and I was talking to someone, Carl, when I worked at McDonnell Douglas about buying a house, and I told them what my mother told the guy, and this white guy said, I knew it. See, they watch everything we do. He was like, I knew you was raised around some people that was always fighting and this and that. My mother never once did anything. She stood up for what she believed in. And what she believed in were her children and what she wanted to leave for her children if she was no longer here. And that is the key right there, Carl, is what we are allowing people to do. If we stand up and we just say, oh, no, this is not going to happen, that will stop, just like when my mother stopped the note from being sold on her house. And unfortunately, the one lady that who said that to my mother, she passed, and Carl, her house, I don't think it was ever paid for, and that's sad. But that happened throughout the community because they was coming through to do a revitalization program once, and the guy said, he said, you and this guy and that guy, y'all are the only ones over here that own y'all home. And my mother shared what happened. Oh, I hear your drums. I'll let you go.
All right, Tabitha, we'll put you on hold and get you information for Jim Clingman from Kevin, and then we'll come back, take some more calls. We get Professor Clingman to respond to what you just said. Folks, you too can join the dialogue. Reach out to us 21 minutes after the hour. The number to call is 800-450-7876. Your calls next. It's the big show. Rolls on from 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Last Friday, Allison Cohn made her status FBF to a pic of me as a pipsqueak. Awkward. It got 59 likes and 12 comments. Impressive, Allie. Geico also has a comment on your Flashback Friday. Did you know Geico has been saving people money on car insurance for over 75 years? Bet you didn't even know they made cars back then. And if you think your flashback is awkward, you should see our pic. Hashtag blurry. Hashtag over 75 years of savings.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Right now, you may be thinking about that bagel you're going to get. Sesame, maybe Asiago. Hot out of the toaster and smothered in ooey gooey cream cheese. Well, wake up, because you should be thinking about switching to Geico and saving hundreds of dollars on car insurance. They have 24/7 access to help answer any of your questions. Can a bagel do that? No, because it's just bread shaped like a circle.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
When the need arises for a funeral repast or a place to hold a memorial service for your loved one, call the New Horizon Hall of Elegance, located at 2209 Vernon Street, Mount Rainier, Maryland. They will take the worry out of you having to handle one more detail, giving you time to focus on family and friends. Call 301-277-5922 to find out more. That's 301-277-5922. That's the New Horizon Hall of Elegance, ready to serve you in your time of need.
Did you know summer is the deadliest season on the roads for youth in the United States? Each May, youth across the country unite during Global Youth Traffic Safety Month to focus on preventing the leading cause of death for them and their peers, traffic-related crashes. Global Youth Traffic Safety Month empowers youth to lead traffic safety education projects to help protect teen drivers. Become a partner with national organizations for youth safety today at noys.org.
Real Talk Radio in the AM.
The #1 morning show. #1 on everybody list.
Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us at 24 after the hour with our guest, Professor Jim Clingman, one of our power talkers. Jim, I'm going to let you respond to what Brother Tabakuti said before we take another call for you.
Well, he just confirmed what I said earlier. And, Carl, I don't profess to have any kind of proprietary claim over the message that I have been putting forth for years. Many people have said the same things many, many years before I even got here. And what Brother Tabakuti said just reminded me once again of Frederick Douglass. He changed his behavior toward the men who would come and beat him whenever he felt like beating him. And he responded and told the guy, you're not going to beat me anymore. If you do, you better plan to kill me or die yourself, because I'm not going to take it anymore. That's a very simple response, an appropriate response to conditions that you're not satisfied with. Do something. Don't just sit there and take it.
All right, we'll keep on rolling. 800-450-7876. Go to line 4. Ayo's joining us. He's on the road somewhere in Colorado. Ayo?
Good morning, Carl, and your guests. This is an excellent opportunity for us to sit down and literally look at ourselves. I have a juvenile group, and I teach them about right knowledge and wrong knowledge. And I tell them at the end of the day, you got to evaluate the decisions you make, so you'll learn to make decisions based on right knowledge. Now, the difference is right knowledge can be applied by anybody and get a positive result. Wrong knowledge can be applied, but the result will not be positive. And we have to understand that this process works in changing the character from who we are into who we want to be. Because at the end of the day, we get a chance to put ourselves on a piece of paper and evaluate so that we can become the person that is basing their lives on right knowledge. And that way we can change that whole concept of image of who we are. Because I'm going to tell you something, that's our responsibility. I appreciate you, brother. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Thank you, bro.
800-450-7876, line 5. Don's waiting for us in D.C. Don, you're on with Jim Clingman.
Yeah, when Harriet Tubman was freeing the slaves from the slave master and getting them away, there was one of few wanted to go back to the masters, and of course, she said, she was very direct, because at that time it was very raw and brutal and direct. She put the gun to his or their head and said, you either die here or, you go with us. And so what I'm saying when I say that is right now it's direct brutality and it's hidden brutality against us. Like, not only us, but, and then when the towers came down, that 7th tower wasn't hit by a plane, but it fell. The Justice Department, what was his name, Mitchell, when his wife was drunk and alcoholic and was they had a meeting and she heard over.
Right, Don, bring us back in because you're going in a different direction now. We don't want to go off course here.
What I'm saying is, what we can do is be more conscious of what's going on, because like at 3 years old at the CDC, they're giving the child before he's 3 80 poisonous shots for virus and stuff, and 25,000. Minister Farrakhan going to take 25,000 down to protest. A lot of ministers, if they're conscious, they should, be going down there with them, So I'm saying your consciousness means a lot, and like above me is a liberation theology, Reverend Hagler. I say, well, I might come there and see what y'all are doing and join that church. Florida Avenue Baptist Church, they giving money to Claude Anderson. That's the only church he says giving them funds. So it's not all ministers that's black. It's not all white folks. John Brown. The 3 that got killed down the South. So we have it's that consciousness that we have to bring forth. My relatives, I want to give them some books, some information, some tapes. But hey, I call there and I asked her, was she listening to the march? She said no. I said, where's my cousin? Is Ruth listening to it? Oh, no. And I said, well, okay, I'll call y'all back after I'll finish looking at the program on C-SPAN. But, so it's hard, but I'll try to put their consciousness and write to them, send them some books if they want to read them, to get them
all right. I'll tell you what, Don, we get the gist of what you're saying, trying to get your family to be more conscious. Jim, you want to respond to what Don said?
Well, yeah, we should be in a constant state of trying to raise our consciousness about first who we are, where we came from, our history, and everything else that's going to give us a positive feeling about.
Right, but should he be fighting or trying that hard to convince his relatives to be trying to get their eyes open, or should he just leave it alone and just wait till it happens naturally?
Well, I think that there's some input that those of us who are conscious can share with others. Whether they choose to adopt it or not is up to them. But I think the way we live our lives, again, projects to people what consciousness is, those of us who are conscious. So I wouldn't say suppress it. But, again, it's whosoever will, let them come.
Gotcha. 800-450-7876, line 2. CP's calling us from South Central Los Angeles. CP, your thoughts on the conversation so far?
Okay, top of the morning, Carl. Top of the morning to your guests and all the listeners. First of all, we have to stop being all over the road when these topics come up. We have to stick to the topic, because if you're all over the road and with one or two things that happen, somebody got to hit you or you got to hit somebody. That's what took us off, got us taken off course, I think. You're absolutely right, brother. It's the mindset that counts. We have to ask ourselves, and we have trained everybody here, set the stage for civilization and stuff. And we're in this condition, we have to change the mindset. I'm nobody's supreme over me. I never thought I was a slave. I never will think I was a slave. And Carl Nelson could attest to, we've been having these conversations forever. That's why he's such a great talk show host. He listens to people. He have good guests. And Dr. Claude Allison said, first thing we got to do, we got to get rid of these symbols. And we have to make sure that when we said about voting, we have to make sure that our vote really count and let these people know we ain't playing, because after they see that they're not accepted anywhere else, Dr. Francis Chris Ribbon just said, they're going to come because they're being closed everywhere else. And when these symbols come around us, let's turn our back to them. Brother, I appreciate you. Claude, you always come up with good guests, and I think you're one of the best talk shows in the nation. Peace to you and power to the people.
CP calling us from LA, 28 away from the top of the hour. Jim, the Sambos, Dr. Welsing said we just could do our thing and just ignore them. And CP says we should take them out or call them out. Your thoughts?
No,
I'll tell you what, hold your thought right there, because we got to step aside for a news update. I'll let you respond on the other side. Folks, you too can get in on this dialogue with Jim Clingman. Reach out to us at 800-450-7876. Again, that's 800-450-7876. Your calls after the news, traffic, and weather on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Good morning. I'm Doug Parrish. Here's the latest from News1.com, brought to you in part by the American Association for Cancer Research, finding cures together. Please support cancer research by donating today at aacrfoundation.org. Well, there are more court hearings scheduled today in the Freddie Gray murder case. Legal expert Adam Ruther says prosecutors are pressing to be able to use the police officers' statements during trial.
It might be very difficult to prosecute the officers without at least some of these statements, because, again, there aren't a lot of other witnesses to this. Most of the witnesses are charged.
6 Baltimore police officers stand accused in the death of Freddie Gray back in April. The first of the trials is due to begin next month. Some drivers who use H Street in Northeast D.C. are crying foul after getting parking tickets during yesterday's holiday. The D.C. Department of Public Works issued tickets on Columbus Day to cars that were parked along the new streetcar route on H Street, and drivers reacted.
Absolutely ridiculous. If you're not issuing tickets in any other part of the city, why issue tickets for a project that don't even work?
Well, the Department of Public Works started issuing tickets for streetcar violations last year. It says it will continue to do so even on holidays between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. Once again, Montgomery County Public School enrollment is at an all-time high. Officials say more than 156,000 students are now registered. That's up by more than 2,600 from last school year. It's the 8th straight year that Montgomery County has rewritten the record books. The news brought to you in part by Unbound. At Unbound, they believe in the potential of an educated child to change the life of her family, her community, and our world. Learn more at unbound.org. I'm Doug Parrish. When you're looking for news for Black America, go to newsone.com.
Good morning, D.C. This traffic update brought to you by RCN Entertainment Redefined. Outer loop of the Beltway just before the Baltimore-Washington Parkway, we have the crash off to the left shoulder. However, that's causing delays now beginning from Arena Drive. Inner loop also stop and go from Central Avenue to Ritchie Marlboro Road. BW Parkway heading southbound through Riverdale, heavy from 202 as you make your way in toward the 50-295 split. With RCN to go, you can take your TV anywhere, anytime. It's awesome-amazing. RCN Entertainment Redefined. 1-800-RING-RCN or RCN.com. This weather update brought to you by Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Mothers Against Drunk Driving supports the victims of drunk driving, and underage drinking at no cost. Call the 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org. Today, cloudiness expected with some sun, highs in the mid-70s. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, lows in the mid-50s. Right now, mostly clear and 60. I'm Tony Thornton for News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Your voice can now be heard.
Y'all ready?
Yeah. With Carl Nelson weekdays from 6 to 10 a.m. on 1450 WOL.
And then you're staying with us 24 away from the top of the hour. I guess it's Professor Jim Clingman, one of our power talkers. And Jim, I'm going to let you finish responding to what CP said right before we left for the news.
Yes, Carl, it gets back to the question you raised earlier when Dr. Welsing was on about should we call these folks out. Let me say this. Black folks have been being sold out as far back as Gabriel Prosser and Nat Turner and Denmark Vesey. Black folks, if you read Dr. Claude's book, Dirty Little Secrets, you'll see that John Brown was sold out by a guy named Haywood Shepherd. That's been happening a long time. We can call folks out, and of course I could go down a list of folks that I believe have and continue to sell us out. But it's what you do once you have that information. And as Amafika teaches our group, he learned this from the words of Elijah Muhammad, that the sellouts are really analogous to a dirty glass. Well, what do you do when you see a dirty glass? Do you just talk about it? Do you just complain about it? No, you put a clean glass next to it. And people will make the appropriate choice 9 times out of 10. And what we're proposing with our 1 million is a clean glass. There's no sense in just continuing to rail against folks who are misleading us, and we don't do anything about it. Now, again, we go back to biblical teaching. You go back to 1 Samuel 8 and read what Samuel told the people who were crying out, "We want a king, we want a king." And essentially what he said is that here, if you are not satisfied with the king you have, which is God, then you'll get a king, but you'll get the king that you deserve. And he laid out everything that this king would do to them, which eventually became Saul. He told him he's not going to treat you well, but if you want him, you can have it because you deserve it. We get the leadership we deserve. Leaders don't pick their followers. Followers pick their leaders. And if we want to follow some of these fake leaders out here, some of these misleaders out here, that's our choice. But we're going to get the kind of leadership we deserve. The 1 million is presenting a clean glass, a group of folks who are conscious and righteous and dedicated to leading our people to economic empowerment and political empowerment. It's everyone's choice.
20 minutes away from the top of the hour. 800-450-7876 to speak to Jim Clingman. Let's go to line 3. Charles is calling us from the district. Charles, your thoughts on the conversation so far?
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to point out that I believe economic power precedes political power. And as we attempt to obtain economic power, which is usually done by supporting businesses and strategic spending of dollars, so should we expend energy focusing on national politics at the expense of obtaining economic power? And I say that because when you look at groups like gays, they're a limited number, but they now have political power because they have economic power. And even Asians, they have power in this country because they have economic power. So can you address that, Dr. Clingman?
Absolutely, my brother, and I appreciate that point. First, and I'm not into self-promotion, but I would hope you would get a copy of my latest book, Black Dollars Matter. Teach your dollars how to make more sense. And I laid out the case in the introduction that we must understand the dominant submissive relationship between economics and politics, respectively. You just said it. Unless we have an economic foundation, economic base, we're not ever going to have political power. I understand that dominant submissive relationship, and I work toward that end. And I agree with what you said. Black people have been so busy romancing the vote that we have failed to romance economic empowerment and romance the dollar. And if we would build up a solid economic foundation like we used to have prior to the 60s, there wouldn't be any problem with getting the kinds of political concessions and reciprocity that we all say we don't have and we need. So I agree with you 100% that economics comes first. Of course, we need and want both, but economics comes first.
Right, because, again, even if we get political power or so-called political power, it will be limited because we don't have dollars behind it. And one other thing I wanted to point out, is our uniqueness as people. And part of that contributes now to our economic situation. We were distorted and mocked for so long about our uniqueness that we fought to prove that we were just like white people. And the cost of that has been, so the whites have decided, well, if you're like us, we don't have to market to the black community, spend money in black media, black television, radio per se, because you'll get it on the mainstream where every other group from Latinos to whoever, there are dollars being sent toward those groups, toward their media and stations. And I don't think we fully comprehend the amount of money that is spent on marketing and advertising in this economy and the number of jobs it creates, not just directly in marketing and advertising, but in other areas. So we have to take a hold and control of our uniqueness again and demand that it is recognized. And I guess that's part of the imaging and the cultural aspect of that. But I was interested in asking you if you have any ideas how we can get that back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Back in the mid-'80s, I was general manager of a black-owned marketing firm in Chicago. And during that time, we, along with people like Tom Burrell and others who owned black ad agencies, promoted and advocated for black marketing companies and black ad agencies to get a larger share of the advertising dollar. And during my tenure at that company, I learned many things about the attitudes of white corporate marketers and advertisers who, as you said, spent very little, if any, with black companies to market to our own consumers. We changed that, I'm proud to say. We were a part of that change, as Tom Burrell was and others who worked during that time. And we must be cognizant of the fact that, yes, we're programmed even today by corporate marketers and advertisers, but we must be critical thinkers and look at and ask ourselves how much of this money to advertise to us is going to our businesses.
Right. Hold that thought right there, Professor Jim Clingman. When you come back, too, I want you to add the conversation that we had about how much money these politicians spent, especially the Democratic Party, on black media the last go-around. It's an interesting topic, folks. You'd be surprised at how much money was spent in black media the last time, the last election. 800-450-7876 to speak to Jim Clingman. We'll take your calls after this short break on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Looking for a caterer to cater your next event? One that's professional, prepares great tasting food, provides a professional staff, and will create tailor-made menus and services to fit your needs and budget, and so much more? Then you have to call A Touch of Class Caterers at 301-449-2082. For 18 years, A Touch of Class has been one of the Washington metropolitan area's premier caterers, providing you nothing but the best for your next event. So whether it's a wedding, rehearsal dinner, church function, repast celebration, or just a private dinner for two, and you want a little more class and elegance to make the day even more special, call A Touch of Class Caterers today at 301-449-2082 and let them take care of the intimate details. That's A Touch of Class Caterers, ready to handle your next event with a touch of class and elegance. Call them today, 301-449-2082, or log on to www.we-cater-2u.com.
Harbor Point Wealth Management assists retirees and pre-retirees in the creation of retirement strategies utilizing insurance products to provide guarantees backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. We are not affiliated with the U.S. government or any governmental agency.
Are you confident that you won't outlive your savings during retirement? Studies have shown that outliving their money in retirement is the #1 concern of most retirees. Karen Scott Mims, ESQ of Harbor Point Wealth Management, can help. She can offer a retirement income analysis that will answer your questions about retirement, including, will I have enough money to last? Will my spouse have enough money if I pass away? What rate of return will I need to average to avoid running low on money? And what impact would another downturn have on my retirement income? To get your income analysis, call Karen today, 866-621-6660, to receive your complimentary retirement income analysis. Call today, 866-621-6660.
Hi, this is Karen Scott Mims. If you're interested in tax-efficient retirement planning, give us a call at 866-621-6660.
As I went through school, one giant question loomed over me. What did I want to be? But in order to know what I wanted to be, I had to first decide what I wanted to make. I wanted to make more. So I became a teacher. Now I make learning a privilege, not a chore, and frustration a tool, not an obstacle. I make working hard seem easy, and giving up impossible. I make an old subject feel like a fresh thought, and unconventional methods common. I make material things less important, and little things like patience and kindness count. I make weekdays more exciting than weekends, and classrooms feel like anything but. I make things different, which is all I ever hoped for. I'm a teacher. I make more.
Find out how you can make more at teach.org. Make more. Teach. Brought to you by Teach and the Ad Council.
Real Talk Radio in the AM. Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. 12 away from the top there. I just want to remind you that Dr. Anoka Rashidi, another one of our Power Talkers, is going to join us from Paris later this morning. Tell us about, he's working on a new book on Dr. Ivan Van Sertimer. I think it's tentatively titled The Van Sertimer Papers. There's also find out his latest trips. Dr. Anoka Rashidi likes to travel all over the world looking for black folks and also artifacts. So we'll talk to him later on. Also, coming up in the next few days, Dr. B is going to be here. Blogger Brandon from the Huffington Post is going to join us. We're going to talk politics with him. Mark from Anaheim will stop by. Also, Dr. Tate is going to be here as well. So tell your friends to lock us in right here on 1450 WOL. Let's go back to our current guest now, Jim Clingman. And Jim, because the conversation that you and I had about the newspaper business and how, especially how much money, because I don't think the audience really knows what happens the political season comes around and they decide that they're going to spend money on advertising. But just fill us in with the numbers for the listeners. Is Jim still with us?
The Democrat Party, to whom we are so loyal, black people are, had about $1 billion in campaign funds in their treasury. And they were spending, doing their media buys and spending millions and millions of dollars on media. And they had to be forced, literally, by some words by Alcee Hastings and George Curry and folks from the NNPA, and embarrassed because at first they had only allocated $650,000 out of $1 billion to go to black print media for advertising and marketing. And once they were called on the carpet about it, they raised that number to $980,000, which again is a drop in the bucket when it comes to $1 billion being spent on media. Black radio did not get an equitable share of that $1 billion that was spent on Barack Obama's campaign, nor did print media. So, it just goes to show you, as Brother Charles, I think it was, alluded to, they don't respect us, number one. They don't care about us simply complaining about not getting funds. They will do what they want to do because there's no price for them to pay for not doing the right thing toward us. I wrote a piece back in 1994 about this same thing that happened with the Flagstar Corporation, which owned Denny's. You may recall the issue with Denny's. It was sued and it made a deal, to pay so much money and all that. It also made a deal to spend $1 million with black newspapers. They reneged on the deal. And at that time, William Gibson was the president of the NAACP and Robert Bogle was the president of the NNPA. Flagstar reneged on that part of its agreement to spend that $1 million with black newspapers. And, again, they wouldn't do that if we used our leverage when it comes to the dollars that we spend on various products with various that are made by various corporations.
Well, Jim, let me interrupt because I heard about the Denny's deal. I did not know that they reneged on the deal, though, because I heard that the deal was made. And I think part of the issue is that we have to get the word out to our folks. I mean, if they renege on a deal like that, our people have to know. A lot of folks go to Denny's. I wrote a
national column about it. I did my part back in '94. The deal was to pay $46 million, I think, to settle that class action lawsuit filed by over 4,300 people. But the other part of the deal was to spend money in print media, and they did not do that. And there's a whole, I have documentation on that I could go back and pull out. But again, they treat us this way because there's no cost for them to pay for doing the right thing toward us, like the gay people that one caller alluded to. They got what they went after because they leveraged their economic base. And politicians know that if we don't respond to these folks, they're going to take their money. Black people just talk about it. We just talk about it. And the Democrats know we're going to vote for them. The Republicans know we're not, so they ignore us. Democrats take us for granted. Unless we start voting as a bloc and letting them know you're going to sign and you're going to state publicly that you support these particular black issues. And if you don't, we're not going to vote for you, period. And we don't.
But how do we get that word out, Jim? Because we've got the other people. CP calls them Sambos. I was searching for a better word. But they're going out and they say they represent us and they can deliver our votes. How are you? Your group, and you say, well, we represent black people too, and we're going to vote as a bloc unless you guys agree to A, B, C, and D. And the other group say, I don't listen to them. They don't represent anybody. How are you going to counter that?
It's the power of the numbers, Carl. There's power in numbers. That's why we're looking for our 1 million committed, conscious black voters who are willing to say collectively, we're going to vote as a block, or we will withhold our 1 million or more, because we figure we're going to get more than 1 million votes from you if you don't support what we want. That's the only way to do it. So, it's just the power of numbers. And if, once we reach that, even before we reach it, we're going to be a recognizable group in this country that is committed to changing public policy toward the benefit of black people. It's simple as that. These folks out here who are carrying the water for these parties, they're one. They may have an organization of 1,000. They may have an organization of 2,000. And that pales in comparison to what we're on our way to doing with the 1 million conscious black voters and contributors. So I invite people to go to the website. I am one of the million. Sign up, read the information, and sign up as a member. The sooner we get to this critical mass of black folks who are conscious and who are willing to do what it takes to get what we say we want, the better off we're going to be.
All right, 800-450-7876, 5 away from the top of the hour. Let's go to line 6. Sam is joining us from D.C. Sam, your thoughts on the conversation so far? Is Sam with us? I think we may have lost Sam. 800-450-7876. And Jim, so now we have to establish that your group is out there, but how do we get the word out, coast to coast? That there's a group out there that represents black folks, and we're going to leverage our votes, not just in elections, but in buying and every other aspect of life in America.
Well, we're doing it as we speak, and we appreciate the opportunity always to be on your show. We've been on other radio shows across this country, and we invite anyone listening from coast to coast who knows of a show that we could be on as guests just to give us a call. Go to our website, send us an email, and let us know. And, of course, people can get my number from you anytime. We just have to continue to spread the word. Our training gathering will be in Philadelphia this coming weekend on Friday and Saturday. People can come to that and learn more about what we're doing with the 1 million. There are ways to find out, to get information that we need. We just have to be open-minded. We have to be willing to take a step beyond what our normal course is to learn what's going on out here and not be led around by the nose by some group of politicians or some political lackeys who would want us to just give up our vote and spend our dollars haphazardly.
All right, hold that thought right there, Jim. We'll come back. We talk about your meeting in Philly on the other side of this traffic update. Folks, you too can get in on this conversation. Reach out to us at 800-450-7876. Your calls. Answer the traffic and weather update on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Good morning, D.C. This update brought to you by MedStar, Washington Hospital Center. The Beltway still jammed up now on the inner loop between Branch Avenue now and I-295, and the outer loop of the Beltway now just after Annapolis Road. Accident off to the left shoulder, so that's good news. The bad news is that your delays continue from just before Pennsylvania Avenue. Sluggish on the BW Parkway now southbound through Riverdale between 410 and the 50-295 split. MedStar Washington Hospital Center offers a new approach to glaucoma surgery. Call 202-877-DOCS for a consultation with an eye specialist. This weather update now brought to you by the Foundation for a Better Life. Winston Churchill's words stirred his country in the face of defeat. Today, they inspire us to reach for our own victories. Commitment passed on from the Foundation for a Better Life at values.com. Expect cloudy skies today with some sun, highs in the mid-70s. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, lows in the mid-50s. Right now, mostly clear in 61. I'm Tony Thornton for News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Remember when a small business needed a landline? Today, the world is your office with Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. On the road, at the beach, or at home, Grasshopper helps you grow your business with all the features of a business phone system and the freedom of a cell phone. Features include multiple extensions for your team, calls forwarded to your mobile phones, voicemails transcribed and emailed, and so much more. See how it works at grasshopper.com, the entrepreneur's phone system.
Listen Wednesday, October 14th from 10:30 to 11 a.m. on WOL News Talk 1450, Montgomery Mosaic, a show focused on your community in Montgomery County. Join host Deborah Milo as she welcomes Evan Glass, Executive Director of the Gandhi Brigade, who will talk about their youth-produced documentary, Juvenile Justice, The Road to Reform. Tune in to hear more about this event and how you can join in both the free screening of the video and the follow-up discussion afterwards. Montgomery Mosaic, Wednesday, October 14th from 10:30 to 11 a.m. on WOL News Talk 1450 a.m.
Today in school, I learned a lot. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me. In English, I learned that I'm disgusting. And in physics, I learned that I'm a loser.
Today in school, I learned that I'm ugly and useless. And in gym, I learned that I'm pathetic and a joke. In history, I learned that I'm trash.
Today in school, I learned that I have no friends. In English, I learned that I make people sick. And at lunch, I learned that I sit on my own because I smell. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me.
In biology, I learned that I'm fat and stupid. And in math, I learned that I'm trash.
The only thing I didn't learn in school today?
The only thing I didn't learn today?
The only thing I didn't learn
is why no one ever helps.
Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. Teach them how to stop bullying and be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
When I was a gang leader, we probably did business together. Because when people like you buy knockoffs on the street, often the money goes to gangs. And gangs use this easy money for other activities. In other words, they're getting a lot of bang for their buck.
Counterfeits hurt, but you have the power to stop them. Go to www.ncpc.org/getreal. A message from the National Crime Prevention Council and the Bureau of Justice Assistance, U.S. Department of Justice.
WOL Washington, WPRS HD2 Waldorf, WKYS HD2 Washington, WMMJ HD2 Bethesda, celebrating 35 years of service to the community, where information is power.
The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.
Welcome to the Carl Nelson Show
on Washington, D.C.'s 1450 WOL Radio and live around the world on WOLDCnews.com.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. Momentarily, we'll be speaking with Dr. Rinoko Rashidi. He's calling us all the way from the City of Lights, Paris. But right now, we're finishing with Professor Jim Clingman. 800-450-7876. Keep that number handy. You're going to need it to speak to Dr. Rashidi. Let's go to line one. Jim, did we finish up before we left for the traffic? Before I take another call?
No, I just wanted to end by giving you information about the gathering this weekend in Philly.
All right, we'll say that for a second. Let's go to Sharon on line one.
Call, that's fine.
All right, Sharon?
Hi.
Is Sharon there on line one?
Brother. Yes, I'm right here, Brother Carl. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning to you and Dr. Clingman. I'm also a registered member of his 1 million conscious black voters. And let me just confirm what he's saying. We need to withhold our vote and vote as a bloc. We, black people, are still the largest dependable voting bloc in the United States. You know, they would like for the Hispanics to overtake us. But at this point, they still not a dependable voting bloc. But, you know, the Democrats and the Democratic liberals would love for them to replace us. And that's one of our biggest problems, that we don't see that. And those people who, our politicians, going to see the so-called black representatives, they're pressing for us to be a permanent underclass also. And one thing that I heard a few callers mention about the march over the past weekend is that I understand what the minister would like to do, building a coalition with the Latinos, but there's no there's no factual basis to say that they're standing with us, because a lot of the callers mentioned that they didn't even show up to the march in a mass group, you know, standing with black people. So, and I live in California, and I know for a certainty they're not trying to build no coalition with us. When they get in a position of hiring and HR, they discriminate against the blacks. When they get in control of hiring practices with unions and sending blacks out on jobs, they discriminate against blacks in the trade industry. And so there's just no evidence of that. And like Claude Anderson told us, every other group comes here with the perception of what part of the anatomy they can get their foot on. And so I would like to, just echo that we need to join with Brother Jim Clingman and get 1 million black voters and hopefully 2 million or 3 million black voters. And that's the way we leverage our power. And if the politicians that's running for the presidency aren't going to openly stand on the podium and basically take a blood oath, for lack of a better term, to support our issues, then no, we shouldn't support them, whether they're Democratic, Independent, or Republican. Thank you, Brother Jim Clingman, and I'm with you, brother. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sharon. And what he said about the Hispanics, they don't need us. It's a numbers game, and they don't need to form coalitions like they used to. But anyway, Jim, before we let you go, the event in Philly, can you give us more information on that?
Yes. First, I'd like to say that black people must stop falling for this, what Harold Cruz called non-economic liberalism. These so-called liberals out here want to give us everything except economic empowerment. We have to take that for ourselves. So you look back in history, I'd love to do a show one day talking about non-economic liberalism. But our event will be this weekend in Philadelphia. It is a gathering specifically for the purpose of organizational training for those who would aspire to a higher level of leadership, or those who just want to become leaders in our group. This is not, and I emphasize not, an Amafika Giyuka and Jim Clingman owned event or movement. We, of course, were visionaries along with other folks, and we are kind of heading it up right now. But Carl, we are old, and we're not looking to be in charge of something. We're at the end of our time here, and we're trying to pass something on to our young people as a legacy. And we have many young people involved in this movement, and we will be there to help train them in terms of how they can lead, how they can be more involved in the economic and political empowerment for our people. And that would take place on Friday, October 16th, as well as Saturday, October 17th. And quickly, to get out of Brother Renoko's way, we're going to talk about the history of the organization. We'll have a keynote speech by Dr. Julius Garvey, who was on your show a couple of weeks ago. We're going to have leadership development. We're going to share information that Amafika and I have accumulated over the many years. And on Saturday, more of the same, leadership training. We have Antar Lumumba coming, Brother Wes Johnson out of Louisiana, Brother Bob Lott in Philadelphia. Cynthia McKinney is going to do a presentation. And we have a cadre of younger folks and older folks who are going to share information and use that information to lead us toward economic and political empowerment. So we ask everyone to go to the website, IamOneOfTheMillion.com. You can read more about the event this weekend. And we encourage everyone to at least take a look at it and decide if this is the way you want to go.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
Appreciate you.
And hopefully